and mask wearing as a daily opportunity for people anywhere to come together and share their experiences of what it's like traversing this extraordinary pandemic, sharing their experiences of solutions, their visions, and their strategic capacity building to ensure that people of goodwill all over the world can come together in such a way that we can ensure that the world beyond the pandemic is more regenerative, more healthy, more abundant, and more in alignment with natural systems and constraints. It's been an extraordinary opportunity for Ubiquity and our partners to provide a simple service of enabling people through Zoom to build community. And our community has grown and expanded exponentially over the months. And I want to welcome all of you to our session today. Let us begin, as we always do, with an exercise for about a minute or so in heart coherence. Take a few deep breaths. Close your eyes and just place your attention on your heart. Try to listen to your heartbeat. In a spirit of gratitude and thanksgiving that you are alive. And your heartbeat is beating with the heartbeat of people all over the world. And even the heartbeat of our earth. 1 minute. Listen to your heart. Thank you, everyone. Now, with an open heart and with a grateful heart that all of you have taken the time to join us today, we want to embark on a program that is both at the cutting edge of scientific exploration and simultaneously at the deepest recess of our ancestral memory of who we essentially are and the nature of reality. One of the most exciting ventures on planet Earth right now is the interface between cosmology and physics and mysticism. And we're very pleased to have a dialogue today with Maurizio and Zaya Benazzo, the founders of Science and Non Duality, who I'll introduce further in a moment. But as we try to do with each and every one of our dialogues, we like to bring in our poet laureate, Kim Rosen, the author of Saved by a Poem, to grace us with some poetry as we begin and end our program today. Kim, welcome.
I am so happy to be here again, Jim. It's been a while, and it's an amazing thing to know that as the ocean hits the shore, so too humanity rising is appearing on the airwaves every morning. Morning for California. So thank you all for being here. It's an honor to be here and to receive the bounty from Maurizio and Zaya, who I met 2 years ago when I had the great joy and privilege of presenting at the Science and Non-Duality Conference. A man who I met there, named Rupert Spira, once said, "Beauty is the collapse of the subject and the object, the collapse of the perceiver and the perceived, so that reality can shine through." And for me, that's what poetry is. There's an alchemical effect of the entrainment of the words, and in my case, the music, because I speak poems to music. There's an entrainment, like that heartbeat that Jim was speaking to, that allows for the brain to release its locks and collapse into reality, which I'm looking forward to hearing more about. But for now, let's allow D.H. Lawrence to speak to us about reality in a poem called Terra Incognita, which he actually wrote prior to 1929. So I love to keep that in mind as I feel the impact of this poem moment by moment in our very seemingly different lives of today. This is a poem called Terra Incognita by D.H. Lawrence, with music by Gary Malkin. And I will put that in the chat. There are vast realms of consciousness, still undreamed of. Vast ranges of experience like the humming of unseen harps we know nothing of within us. Oh, when we have escaped the barbed wire entanglement of our own ideas and mechanical devices, there is a rich, marvelous world of sheer, fluid beauty and contact and fearless, face-to-face awareness of now naked life. And me, and you, and other men and women, and grapes and ghouls and ghosts and green moonlight and ruddy orange limbs stirring the limbo of the unknown air, and eyes so soft, softer than the space between the stars, and all things and nothing, and being and non-being alternately palpitant. Oh, when we have escaped the barbed wire enclosure of know thyself, knowing we can never know, but only touch and wonder and ponder and make our effort and dangle in a last fine fastidious delight, as the fuchsia does, dangling her reckless drop of purple after so much putting forth, and the slow mounting marvel of a little tree. Oh, when we have escaped the barbed wire entanglement of our own ideas and mechanical devices, there is a marvelous, rich world of contact and sheer fluid beauty and fearless face-to-face awareness of now naked life. And all things and nothing, and eyes so soft, softer than the space between the stars, and being and non-being alternately palpitant. Oh, when we have escaped the barbed wire enclosure of know thyself, there is a rich, marvelous world, vast ranges of consciousness still undreamed of, vast experience like the humming of unseen harps we know nothing of within us. When we have escaped the barbed wire enclosure of know thyself, knowing we can never know, but only touch and wonder and ponder and make our effort, there are vast realms of consciousness still undreamed of. The poem is Terra Incognita. The piece of music is called Into the Magnificence by Gary Malkin, poem by D.H. Lawrence. Thank you so much. I really look forward to this dialogue, and I'll see you again at the end of it.
Kim, escaping the barbed wire enclosure of know thyself. What a powerful, powerful concept to ponder. And that leads us to our subject, my friends, that we want to explore today. It's come up a number of times over the months of Humanity Rising, this interface of the latest in science with the most ancient awareness, as we continue to journey into the unknown, desperately seeking to know. So I want to, in this spirit, welcome Zaya and Maurizio Benazzo, who came together to establish, among other things, the organization and movement around science and non-duality, which has emerged as one of the seminal convenings in our world of spiritual exploration and consciousness over the last number of years. Dear ones, I salute you for everything that you've done. Most of us have participated in your convenings one way or another, one time or another, and it's a delight and a privilege to have you with us. Why don't we just start by, I think people would be interested in a little bit about your origins and how wonderful people like you discovered the pathway of science and non-duality. Why don't we begin there?
Wow.
Thank you, Jim. Oh,
yes, we are good.
Yeah, we're good. And thank you, Kim, for this beautiful, beautiful poem. I cannot think of more inspiring opening and invitation than the message.
Yeah.
And thank you, Jim, for creating such an amazing space and sustaining it for so many months for us to come together and share ideas and inspiration, which is at a time of crisis, very precious gift.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to again thank you as well, both of you. And Jim, it's funny when you introduce us like this, all of a sudden I think, who is he talking about? I was like, I want to see them, I want to meet them. In our little bubble, in our little universe, we do the thing day by day, and then all of a sudden, 1,000 people appear at an event. Oh my God, who is this? And then they disappear, and then it's so surreal. The way you describe it made me feel like, really, sincerely, I'm honored, touched, and I heard it for probably one of the first time. So anyway.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
And that's how it all started, by us being very spontaneous and listening to this absurd impulse that came through us, with us, getting together and sharing our curiosity about spirituality, about reality. And it was kind of an unstoppable impulse to share it with others. That's really, there was not much cognitive planning or thinking. It was like, oh, we need to do this.
Yeah, it was absolutely automatic. It was a default mode. Well, when I met Zaya, and the first thing I met, basically, I convinced her to come to India with me to shoot a movie about Nisargadatta Maharaj. And she fell into the trap. So I brought her with me to shoot this movie because she's an amazing director and camera person and an editor. She's an amazing filmmaker. And I was making this movie. So I lured her in and went there with the Nisargadatta.
What year was this?
2007. And
we were both already like studying the teachings of Nisargadatta, and Maurizio was working with a teacher called Steven Wolinski and a writer, I don't know. So he initiated the project of going to India and actually filming the legacy of Nisargadatta Maharaj, who died in the 80s and left one of the, in our opinion, probably most important spiritual book that he didn't write, but people, it was compiled of his teachings, and it's called I Am Death. T-H-A-T.
I Am Death. Yeah. So we went to make this movie, which Rays of the Absolute, which is free on YouTube. You can watch it anytime. And during the making of this movie, one of the old translator of Nisargadatta said that Maharaj used to say, what I'm teaching is not spirituality. What I'm teaching you is science. One day scientists will understand all this. And that sentence remained in us, and we came back, and one day we at a dinner with a friend, this friend got the brilliant idea of saying, hey, why don't you make a conference on science and spirituality? There is nothing going on now on this topic, because there was something in San Diego, what was called
Inner Direction
at something. And he said, why don't you make something like that? And said, yeah, sure, let's do it, but it has to be a year from now to the date. Otherwise, because you talk and then nothing happened, right? And so the following morning, or a couple of days later, we called the only hotel that we know could hold 500 people in the area in Marin County, the Embassy Suite. And they said, oh, come on, October, it's impossible. This is the worst time of the year. There is plenty, is the highlight. And then he said, oh, no, wait a second. Oh, we got a cancellation for that weekend. I said, okay, so we'll take it. And so all of a sudden we had the thing started. But it's been, a magical journey, really, not a...
And one other thing Nisargadatta used to say is that they're like keys to consciousness. And each human being, we have to find our own key. And for someone, the key could be quantum physics. For somebody else, could be chanting or music or poetry. And so that was one of the first visions of Zen is, can we bring as many keys as possible and offer them to whoever comes, because then we didn't even know if anyone would resonate with a crazy vision like this.
Who's going to come to that?
And it was surprising. Even the first year, we had already 400 people that came from everywhere, around the globe.
Yeah. Say more about Maharaj. I must say I'm not familiar with him. What was it about his teaching that really struck you? Such that you were compelled to study him and do the film on him. How would you distinguish him from the other teachers of the 20th century?
He was a simple man, very simple man. He was a bead maker. So no high intellectual knowledge, but incredible directness and precision in the way he would bring a student to what he called the absolute. So he would very quickly help you drop all the ideas. So go very quickly beyond ideas, concepts, and really point to what the mind actually can never grasp. There was just magic in the directness with which he was teaching. For me, that's how I...
For me, on a personal note, I've always been exposed to all this teacher tradition, and I can never last a week, literally. Because all of a sudden they tell you have to wear the specific shade of color, or if you don't eat fish on Friday. I mean, it's like, what? Come on. There has to be something a bit more intelligent about this absolute than telling me that I have to wear a specific shade of some color or shade or cut my hair. And Nisargadatta was a person. First of all, for what I heard, I never met him personally, but for what I heard, for what I read about him, when a person was coming to see him, after a week or two, he would say, okay, now it's time that you get out. If you didn't get it by now, you're not going to get it. So you got it, thank you, go and get out from your life. He was in a room over in his house, in sort of a living room, studio, if you want to call it, a room. And people were offering money, say, oh, let's build an ashram. He said, why do I want an ashram? Here, in the morning, I open the window. In the evening, I close the window. If I have an ashram, you know how many windows I have to open and close? Why would I want that? He never left any disciples. He didn't want to have an ashram. He really was just, that's what I know. I'm a bead maker. He got pissed all the time. And he was spreading this word of insane, intense, deep wisdom that to me hit me because I felt the sincerity, because he didn't try to sell me something, but then I have this for you. There's no agenda. It was total a nutcase, and that's the nuttiness, the craziness of the wisest person in the world. You want that.
In some ways, he was the opposite of someone like Bhagwan, who was always dazzling and always enchanting people to Pune.
Exactly. And they were teaching at not far from
one another.
A lot of people went from...
And everybody, again, the keys for the door. The door of Bhagwan was an amazing key. I'm not saying that my key is the key. I'm saying my key is my key. For I know many people who got so much from Bhagwan. I know many people who got much from, I got a lot from Christianity. Everybody has their own key. That was my key, simply.
Yeah. That's a beautiful point. Everybody's got their own key. And it's not the key. It's my key. And as you all know, keys can change as we grow and we mature and we have different circumstances. Well, thank you for sharing that. And let's explore I am that, because that's what points to non-duality. I am that. And that's the great line from the Upanishads. What have you come to understand about non-duality in a highly dualistic, dichotomized, contradictory world? What does that mean to you?
Wow, it has changed so much over the years, actually. And we've seen it also changing in the Zen community. I would say the first 5 years of Zen, we were really following the path of neti neti, which is a very non-dual path, which goes like, it's not this and it's not this. It's not this, not that. So the path of negation. So you arrive to the essential truth.
So basically you cannot say what is, you can only say what is not.
Yeah. The via negativa, as they would call it in Western theology.
Exactly. And then something happened. We started noticing in ourselves, but also, and there is the evolution of spiritual path in the shape that took for us and for our community, in which we realized, wow, there is something started to feel a little bit stagnant. And we realized we were not addressing some of the human qualities, some of the humanity that actually brings us together. And then we start learning a little bit more about human trauma and conditioning and the unconscious. So we slowly started allowing some of this to come because we were not progressing in some way. We were seeing something was... It was very easy to go into spiritual bypassing with the absolute path and to go from, okay, it's me and then it's the absolute. But there is a lot happening in between that also helps us know who we are and know reality. So we moved more into and this and that. Like, oh, wow, wait, I am right now experiencing very heavy feelings, or there is a discomfort. That's also included. How can this not be included, right? If everything is absolute, then this also is part of it.
Basically, we started fighting again as a couple. No, seriously, I mean, in a way, because at one point our house caught fire. I remember we were totally like looking and said, well, the emotion are not touching it. And it was really sincere. We really felt this, this sensation of being part of the absolute, part of the play of life. But then on the other hand, sometimes, emotion have to arise. This combination between us being the absolute and us being human should be represented on both levels. So this gearing towards the light constantly, it's a one-way street. I don't think it's not complete. You have to try to keep, in my opinion personally, you have to keep your feet on the ground and know your darkness. Only through your darkness you can see the light, basically.
So actually in the following 5 years, we started diving a little bit more into the darkness, into what is crisis on our spiritual journey, what is shadow, what is unconscious, what is spiritual bypassing, when we might be bypassing the discomfort, and what's trauma, and how trauma has shaped us individually, but also collectively. What is collective trauma? So all these topics came into the conversation and the exploration in a way which I see they were preparation almost to where we are today as humanity, with the crisis and with the not just with the pandemic, but also with the social crisis we're experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
So the sense started opening the lens and going beyond. You never go beyond I am dead. That is always the foundation.
Right.
But there's different ways to remember that.
Different angle to see the I am that, because But the essence of what I think you're saying and is that science on duality is really a personal journey for us of our discovery, has been a personal journey of our discovery and our growth. And let's say we don't have a marketing plan and a business plan, let's put it this way. We definitely don't have a business plan. We just constantly feel what's needed, what's felt in our body and in our souls, if you wish, whatever you want to call it, and express. We try to express ourselves and what we are trying to learn and what we are learning. So and we open our arms to the wider community, and for some reason it feels that there is a certain attunement for the community, because our path has been reflected quite a bit in the path, as I said, of what's going on in the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's beautiful. It's I think a powerful statement of our time, that the more the world deconstructs in the contradictions that we have created for ourselves, the more that gets fractured, the more the I seeks the non-duality. And I think that's something I would love to explore with you for a moment, because I think, this question of what does the non-dual mean in a time of COVID is a seminally important question in the depths of suffering. How do we experience unity? Because it's our suffering that compels us to feel separate and to feel the acuteness of the I, because we're suffering. And yet it is in that moment when the gateway to the non-dual is actually the widest and most inviting. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about how you experience the non-dual in the context of trauma and suffering. We've had Thomas Hubel a number of times on Humanity Rising, and he's really focused his mystical awareness and his whole work in the world around transgenerational trauma, and how trauma accumulates over time, generation after generation. And that one of the reasons why the world is in such crisis today is because the accumulated trauma has reached quite literally a breaking point, and that the world is quite literally breaking down. And that's what the scientists are telling us. We have, less than 10 years to turn this thing around, but we're so burdened by trauma that it is impossible to extricate ourselves from this. And I want to give an example of this and then have you respond, because what's happening in the United States right now is so painful for us all, because we're witnessing in the polity of America the accumulated transgenerational trauma that infected this nation from the very beginning around slavery, around race. And I want to note that the protests and response to the killing of George Floyd, both in the United States and around the world, saw greater numbers of people participating than any other event in human history. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of protests around the United States, thousands around the world. When one Black man, gasping, "I can't breathe," was kneed to death by a white police officer in May of 2020. And Trump and the white supremacists and the racist QAnon mentality of conspiracy theories, and we saw it even attack the Capitol building of the United States on January 6th. And the whole country now is seething because the Republican Party, in that one opportunity it has to distance itself from Trump, is now coming closer and closer to Trump and embracing that mentality in a way that may cause a new civil war in this country. Not with secession, but with the domestic violence that ensues when white supremacy and racism is not checked, condemned, and suppressed. So when you raise this issue of moving from the via negativa, you can't describe it, to describing it, you're absolutely right. When you start to describe it, you end up in suffering. You end up in trauma, because that's where most of the world is. You know, so I want to hear your thoughts in the context of something like this. What does non-duality, where's the pathway to non-duality? How do you get even on the pathway to the non-dual when your soul, your country is being ripped asunder by the dualisms themselves?
I just want to say one thing related to what you said. I agree with every word you said, but one.
Oh, good.
When you say that the 100%, 99%, I agree with you. When you said that this right-wing white supremacy should be oppressed,
suppressed.
I disagree on that. Should be integrated. That's all. That's the only word I change in what you said. Everything else you said is absolutely spotless. And you remind me of Resma Menakem when he talks about the incredible book, My Grandmother's Hand, that basically this country is the country, the ultimate trauma. We have, the people who escape Europe because we were tortured and ripped apart. They came into this continent, and then what the hell do they know other than rip apart and torture and kill everybody else? But that's a completely different conversation. I just want to add the word integrated instead.
Speak about that. That's very important distinction you're making, Maurizio. Thank you. Speak to us about how you integrate the shadow, not the shadow, in this case, white supremacy and racism. How do you integrate white supremacy and racism into the polity?
It's an individual work. To me, it's individual work that reflects in the collective.
And collective work.
And that reflects in the collective. But to me, this is the work.
So how?
I throw the bomb, then I leave it to her because I know I'm safe if she talks.
Well, I can only talk about myself, because if I go too far out, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna be in my head fully. So it's really moment to moment. How do I live my non-dual understanding in moment to moment? And it has been coming in different ways. Like what's happening for us in the spiritual community. We have a lot of our friends that have been brainwashed, or how you want to call, by the whole conspiracy theory paradigm. and how I am with that. It's extremely challenging, how I can go into myself into contracting and judging and rigidity when I hear them coming with a big statements like the pandemic doesn't exist or don't wear masks. And I just literally feel how my body is violated, and there is trauma there in my reactivity and in why they see what they see. So doing the work of understanding what prompts them perhaps to believe in such a paradigms, but also to find the common humanity underneath. Like I love the poem we opened with, beyond ideas and devices, right? So what is it there? Can I still feel you? Can we still recall our friendship and connection, even though we are completely in different bubbles? Because we live in bubbles. That's a whole different conversation today. We are so much pushed in our own little alleys by the digital media and
oh yes,
communicate with one another the way we are mirrored from the go ahead.
No. the example that comes to mind, yesterday I went to a grocery store here, and an old acquaintance came and approached me. Hey, and I said, how are you? And he started talking about this incredible insanity of Nazi with American and Chinese together, putting a vaccine that it will go in the part of the brain that will stop the growth of, so and it's like, whoa. And okay, yes, I believe the pharmaceutical company are evil, but and I believe in every pieces, if you wish, but I could not grasp any conversation. I could not find a way to connect. And that what comes to mind all the time to me is when I grew up in Italy in a village. And in the village, we have the fascist, the communist, the priest, and the person who doesn't give a cacadoodle about anything, and the farmer. We were all in the bar. 80 years old people, to me, 14 years old boy, playing cards and giving shit to each other and playing. And all of a sudden, a big fight, not fight, but scream fight happened. And the fascists say, and the communists, and they scream and they yell at each other, blah, blah. One leave, one come back, whatever. But if one of them got sick, if anybody in the family was sick, if anything happened to anything, when somebody was dying, all the village was behind the casket, all the village. So yes, we can have different idea. I like chocolate, you like vanilla. Thank you very much. Do we have to kill each other? Really? Do we have to go to war? Really? The problem becomes that at this point, we don't have any more an understanding of reality. What was saving the village is the fact that, hey, the village, I know how it is. The sun comes here. Now it's time to harvest the wine. Now, somebody died. The reality was real. Share. It was a shared reality. Now we are in a state in which, with the disinformation, if you want to call it, with the fact that opinions and news are exactly the same thing. There is no distinction between opinion and news. Anybody can say anything and create alternative reality. Alternative reality are designed to put us in a hole. Then we are more and more isolated. Then we want to connect with other people. Oh my God, you think like me? Yes. Yeah, the green jelly beans are coming here to kill us. I know. Yes, we are two of us. And we get more and more absurdly separated. So the issue has become what is reality and an understanding of reality, which makes absolutely no sense than to talk about non-duality, because we are talking about not sense, but it makes it very complicated, because then we talk about also us as being non-dual, being all connected as a universe. And some people can say, you guys are conspiracy theorists. How do you see that we are all one?
Yeah, and I really appreciate your response here, and I'd like to take it one more level and refer, which I think Maurizio, is inherent in your distinction between suppression and integration.
Yeah.
If you look back to South Africa, after they had liberated themselves from apartheid, and, which is arguably, as racist as the United States in many, many ways, it was Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu who, in the aftermath of the triumph and election of Mandela, initiated the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And I think the point that I would love to have you explore, this was only possible because Mandela and Desmond Tutu had the consciousness of non-duality. It's an extraordinary thing if you think of everything that Mandela went through, 27 years on Robben Island, and yet he came out in a spirit of forgiveness that allowed him to transcend and include. And similarly with Tutu, in a way, so that there's a relationship between the capacity of a country to integrate and the development of a consciousness that actually can conceive that as a redemptive act. So the question, I'd love to have you comment on that, but the question that I'd have to you is how, given all your experience in these domains, how does one cultivate the consciousness of non-duality such that you can integrate rather than suppress?
I just want to put it out there that perhaps, and maybe I'm too optimistic here, why the murder of George Floyd created such a ripple effect. Maybe collective consciousness has awakened to certain level in which we actually all can stand up and respond and say, no, it's enough. Enough is enough. Because this is not the only murder that happened. It's been happening for for generations before that. But there was a critical mass, perhaps, that was built through different movements and in which we stood up and we all said, enough is enough. This cannot happen. Perhaps, maybe that's one explanation, that maybe we are waking up. There is a lot of division, but there is also on the other side unstoppable force. And maybe perhaps we are ready to start facing some of those wounds we've been carrying for generations. We are ready now. We have a capacity as human beings to actually meet those wounds and integrate them. That's one, perhaps, I don't know, but that's how I like to see it. Maybe we are ready actually to begin integrating the parts we've been suppressing and denying. And I think that's really the path. The path is to saying, okay, to meet the discomfort is like, okay, there is a part of myself that is right now very rigid, or it's not open for connection, to acknowledge it and to be with it and to see, again, from that, can I still find the path to non-dualities? Can I still find connection? That's what's coming. You want to say something else about integration? This is a beautiful question because I think this is the time for... and our ancestors, they didn't have the luxury, to integrate. Their lives were so much about survival that, wars, famine, all kinds of regimes, oppression, poverty. We have the luxury, some of us, again, privileged to step back and to say, wait, this has been going on for a long time. Let's see what we can do together to heal.
Yeah, well, to your point, before you jump in, Maurizio, I just want to underscore the profound point that you're making, Zaya. We've had a number of people from the Heart Math Institute and the Global Coherence Pulse on Humanity Rising, and they pointed out that as scientists have been measuring the Earth's electromagnetic field, they noted around 9/11, for example, that in the immediate aftermath of the event of the World Trade Towers back in 2001, the electromagnetic field of the Earth changed as people worldwide took in that experience and in unison expressed themselves emotionally. There was an actual shift in the planetary electromagnetic frequencies, so that they've been tracking this relationship between globally important events and the emergence of what Teilhard de Chardin would have called the noosphere, that the human race is actually in our generation beginning the process through globalization and the instantaneous news everywhere, the creation of a global brain, as Peter Russell would put it. And I'm sure you're very familiar with all this, but it's just worth noting that I think that was an actual part of George Floyd. That, that event in some mysterious way, and there have been hundreds of Black people killed, but there was something about that particular killing in that moment that went through the global brain, global consciousness, and the whole world erupted in a consternation of protest and acknowledgement that racism must come to an end on planet Earth if we're to move forward in any kind of an abundant way. So this non-duality is also layered. We have our personal ego. You're in a relationship, the two of you. You have a consciousness of the two of you, the SAND community, science and non-duality, as an Americans, as world. Europe has its own. So there's layers and layers of consciousness within which we swim every day. And sometimes the global captures our attention. Sometimes it's the intensely personal. And somewhere in that mix is a connectivity of non-duality that knits the whole thing into one singularity. Does that make sense?
100%.
Beautiful.
And again, there is one little angle I want to add a little twist.
Wonderful.
To me, non-duality, especially, anyway, to go straight to the point, to me, non-duality is not only human-centric. I just want to make sure it's not human-centric. I remember Teocassin at our event, dying and leaving this Lakota tribe elder. Right. Beautiful man, writer. He has a voice in Voice of America. He has a radio show. He was saying that one day he was at the ceremony, and people said, "Oh, you are the only native here at the ceremony. We are all white. How does it feel to be a minority?" And he looked at them and said, "What are you talking about? Look around. You are the minority. Look at all this being, look at all this plant, all these animals, the birds. You are the minority. What are you talking about?" And that was so beautiful. and to me, non-duality,
human-centric.
Yeah, we have to stop to make it human-centric, because human-centric, we create another form of, I say something totally stupid, but allow me, that's my essence. It's another form of racism. It's another form of oppression. We are oppressing the earth. We are oppressing the chicken. We are oppressing the cows. I mean, how are we treating those animals? How can we talk about the planet, September 11? Yes, the human. Okay, thank you very much. But a earthquake or the fire in the Amazon that kills millions of animals. Now, let's put some device on their wrist and see how the field of the earth is changing. That's. We have to stop being human-centric, because the human centricity is another representation of the ego. It's me. Well, it's us. Well, it's humans. Well, no, it's the universe. You know, it's the planets, it's the birds, it's the stars, it's the galaxies.
We're embedded in an intelligent field.
Right.
That we're just one little ring, and maybe.
Maybe.
Not.
Well, this is beautiful. Richard Page.
Love Richard.
A beautiful, beautiful note in the chat, which I think Richard is brilliant.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
We
all love Richard.
That we grew enough to know that we are that in the killing of George Floyd.
Yeah.
Now that, Richard, thank you. That is a profound insight, that we've grown enough collectively to know that we are one. And when we saw the killing of George Floyd, somehow that was at the right frequency to go through the global consciousness and animate that awareness of oneness.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful point. That's a beautiful point. Would love to have your comment on that within what you were just saying, Maurizio, of the larger awareness that we're in one eco field.
Yeah.
I just want to say, this is also a little bit like, in spirituality, when you have your first aha moment and you feel like, oh, now I'm awakened.
Now I got it.
This is the same. Now we have to actually chop wood, carry water in terms of dismantling racism. That one moment where we all got together and, and acknowledged it is not enough. Now it's really the work of every day of what we do, where we live, how we relate, how we support the people that are under.
And that's the integration that you're talking about. That's the integration against the suppression. The suppression is the reaction. Oh, you're suppress that. Put them, where do we put them? Let's put them in an island and kill them. The suppression is violent. The integration is unconditional love. And it's way more difficult.
And for SEM, I would say, as an organization, we have started a journey really to look at how even in a spiritual organization, we might be embodying some of the characteristics of white supremacy. Yeah. So looking at that and working with that, and why people of color are not coming to some of the events, or not to an extent that we would love to, or what are the views that we might not be representing that will resonate with people of color. And so there is the journey. There is a lot of work there to be done.
And connected to what you said before, is a luxury to do this work. Is a huge privilege.
Necessity. It's a luxury
and a necessity, because in a way, the fact that you have certain privilege is not just for you to abuse. Privilege, it can be seen in the in a connected universe. When you have a privilege, you have the obligation to do something with it. When you have a gift. There was something in the Bible, I think, the parable of the father gives a coin to the son, and one of them hiding in the garden, and the other one use it. Privilege comes with obligation, responsibility.
Yeah, so, to whom much is given, much is required, said Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying. The privilege comes with obligation and responsibility.
I'd like to further explore your notion in your last comment, Maurizio, about the larger eco field, because I think it's very important for humans to realize that not only are we a minority, we're a minority of one, in the sense that scientific data now shows that the other species are all in intelligible conversation with each other.
Yeah.
The human race is the only species that not only is not in the conversation, but doesn't even know that a conversation is happening.
Right. We have been kicked out of the Garden of Eden.
We closed the channel of communication. The communication still happening. We are just not hearing
We just
it.
don't want to hear it. We are too wrapped up in our bullshit, you know?
And by the way, ubiquity, I think ubiquity is the only academic institution of higher learning anywhere in the world that teaches in its courses interspecies communication.
Wow.
It was started, a number of years ago by one of our faculty of Pila, Colorado, who's an elder in the Iroquois nation. And she came up to me one day and she said, "Jim, have you ever heard of geomythology?" And I said, "No, I know about Greek mythology and Roman mythology and Chinese mythology." And she says, "How about Earth mythology? Do you know that the Earth is telling us stories all the time? We're just not listening."
Beautiful.
And that was an amazing experience and breakthrough for me. And we really began to scientifically explore the fact that other species are also in on this conversation and experience of non-duality, but they're much further along the pathway than we humans are. They seem to be in it naturally in ways that we have to discover through arduous searching. So I'd love to hear you a little bit further, Maurizio and Zaya, on the non-duality of the layers of reality. That is not just non-duality between the human and the cosmos. It's the non-duality between us and the bees and the birds and the fish of the sea. And again, emphasizing the trauma, according to the World Wildlife Fund, in the last 50 years, humanity has wiped out 69% of all the biodiversity in the animal, plant, fish, bird, and forest kingdoms. So we find ourselves struggling with what you are seeking to teach us at a moment of, I would say, maximum vulnerability and fragility of the very non-duality that produced us to be what we are.
Yes. And you know what I would start? I don't know. Maybe the coffee's kicking in today for me. I would start with the non-duality between the mind and the body. Mm-hmm. I would start there. Because once we heal the non-duality between our mind and our own body, all of a sudden we get the connection to the non-duality to every other species, probably.
Beautiful.
I would say that's a start. From the microbiome. I mean, we are, 90% made of microbes and viruses, and bacteria. What is this human body anyway, right? What is this human per se?
Mm-hmm. And another thing we've been learning through Zen is, we've started living so much in our heads, so much in ideas and concepts, and I think Rev Deborah Johnson says, to heal, in order to heal, you have to feel. And that's the same, like we have to relearn to feel that connection to life, moment to moment as we walk. There is the wind. It's not only the species, there is the storms, there is the sand, there is so much energy, that fields that we are product of and depend upon, and starting to feel and rebuild relationship to those phenomena of life that make us, and we are embedded in.
And then the first step is to enter the body, to feel our own body. Feel our own. In the moment you feel your body, you're present to your own body. First of all, your life change completely. Your goals are different. You don't have the goal to make 25 million gazillion dollars and kill every. If you feel your own body, if you get off of your mind, you shift, and that shift takes you most likely closer to other and the world.
We can understand conceptually non-duality, but that's not
Doesn't fly.
not going to change. That's
Yeah.
not going to make the difference we're longing for and we need.
If you're non-dual from here to here, you ain't gonna work.
Yeah,
You know,
from the neck up, it doesn't count.
doesn't count. I mean, it's,
Well, you know, Daniel Riders is making a very important point. You know, that I mentioned the plants and the animals and the birds and the fishes and the forest, and he says, and the parasites.
and the parasite, absolutely.
And it's worth noting
And
that one of the
virus.
reasons why we're susceptible to the pandemic, to this virus, is because we don't have enough viruses and bacteria and parasites in our body.
Yeah.
All this processed food we've been eating, all the endocrine disrupting chemicals that we're ingesting into our body. The human beings have 700, 800 chemicals in their bodies that didn't exist in human bodies 75 years ago. And it's wiping out our biogenome. And so these viruses are more able to attack us because we've weakened ourselves from our connection that you're speaking about.
Yeah, but the viruses are not attacking us. They're minding their own business. They're doing the job of a parasite. The virus is doing his job. Poor COVID. I mean, COVID is he's minding his own business. He's doing what a virus does. That's non-duality as well. COVID is non-duality. COVID it's here, and we have to respect it, honor it, and and learn to live with it.
And has brought humanity together. In a strange way,
yes.
In a way that has never happened.
Yeah,
we are having
the George Floyd of Paris.
Yeah. And someone on our program was mentioning the other day that the difference between our bacteria and the viruses in our body is the bacteria ensure kind of ecological stability. They're symbiotic and they're just making the whole thing work. Viruses can transmute. Viruses, there's an intelligence to the viruses that doesn't exist in the same way with bacteria. And that's just worth noting. But I'd like to...
I think, just to say something, I think the human placenta was a product of a virus, actually. That's also what helps evolution make those leaps in the genetic code.
So as we bring this to a close, my friends, and this has been such a rich conversation. Thank you both so much. I want to have you comment on a chat that Amy Blumenschein just put in. I am us. I am us. And in that spirit, that I am us is really the I am that of our day, given current world circumstances. Share with us some practical ways that you've learned over time in your own life that has aided you in cultivating non-duality. If we are that, and we are us, we are we, and yet we're in a world full of trauma, separation, pain, and suffering. What would you offer as some practices in non-duality that's just worked for you, that are easily done? We start with a heart coherence meditation every day. That's an exercise in non-duality, if you think about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you offer?
Well, something along the lines as well. Pause and feel. Stop and breathe. We've gone to that level of simplicity in our practice. Okay, right now something is okay. Just pause and feel. Can I pause and feel myself, my heart, my breathing, and then allow the next action to come from that reset rather than a habit or reactivity. That kind of spaciousness allows me to respond to the moment rather than react.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that, really. And I'm not able to do it always. Sometimes the reactivity
More
takes
than
over and I just don't feel, I react to the moment.
Yeah.
And that's an ongoing practice of feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're suggesting sort of an exercise in spaciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
a somehow slow
moment
down.
moment
to moment. Eternity to eternity.
Yeah.
And
Go. No.
I was sidetracking completely.
It's okay. Go ahead.
I remember two things came to mind. One is all of a sudden now, moment to moment, I said, I remember my grandma when she was dying, she died in my arm. I was in my 2021. And she has never read a book in her life. She barely could write. I don't think she could write other than bread and for what the shopping list. And she was dying. And she said, I'm here, I'm dying. And I'm trying to think what I did. I did so many things, everything, but there is nothing. I'm only here now and I'm dying.
Yeah, that's it.
And I often think, often think that in another moment, exactly like this, I will die. In this moment, boop, oh my God, I'm dying. I'm here now. So that brings me to a appreciation, presence of this moment that sometimes is not perfect, come on, but it's always absolutely perfect as it is. To me, that's always something that very often come to mind, my grandma, that she really had no freaking clue about nothing. And as I said, never read a book, probably first elementary school, first grade. And the profound teaching she gave me when I was holding her, like a few minutes before she died. Yeah.
Beautiful. Spaciousness and being here now. Is what you're saying, and that's a beautiful closing note, everyone.
And just one more thing is coming, like just to reflect to what was happening in the collective. I got so moved by the whole mime of Bernie Sanders and the ripple effect it created in the collective. And what does he represent there, sitting simply on that chair with his, what do you call it? Gloves. And is that longing for simplicity and honesty.
Yes.
That the world has gone so complex and we're so lost in that layers of complexity that there is something that the human heart recognizes in this utter simplicity of sitting and being.
Yes.
And that can create a quantum leap in consciousness. He raised $1.8 million, which I don't know in the scale of things what it is, but it happened just by people saying yes to that and donated them immediately to whatever he... So there is something I think there to recognize about being here now and the simplicity and the longing we all have
and it was,
for that.
Waking up this morning, I was thinking exactly that. At the end of the day, to me, I woke up too early for this. I just want to know. And I was thinking, I always think that to me, my huge privilege is that I don't wake up from an alarm clock. I can eat whenever I'm hungry and I can sleep whenever I'm tired. And I'm surrounded by someone I love, and I'm sheltered, and I have a garden with a chicken and a dog, and
it's a
God, that's how much more I can want. There is nothing that can buy this privilege of being able to waking up. I mean, waking up without an alarm clock, yes, and eating when you're hungry, and drinking when you're thirsty, and be surrounded by people you love. What else?
Yeah. Well, that's the Tao, isn't it? And that's the way. And so I deeply thank you both for your illuminations today. It's been beautiful. It's been poetic, and it's been full of grace. I thank Amy your note that it comes down to I am we.
I am we.
And that's what's allowing us to be what we need to be in this time. So thank you. And now I'd like to call Kim back to our midst to grace us as we close with some poetry. Kim?
What a joy to be with you all. Oh my goodness. I can feel, even in this apparently dark time, the bubbling up of possibility and joy and truth. And thank you, all three of you, for your articulation of the inarticulable. And to continue with that, I want to call on two poets who are actually poets of color, although I think we don't usually think of them that way. The first is Rumi, who is Persian, from Turkey. And that will be followed by a poem by Derek Walcott, who is a poet of color who was from St. Lucia. The first poem is called Undressing. And it harkens back to where Maurizio and Zaya began the conversation, the insistence that true non-duality is non-duality between the human catastrophe and the reality of all that is. Or as Leonard Cohen so beautifully put it, the holy and the broken. Hallelujah. This is what Rumi has to say about it through the great gift of Coleman Barks, bringing him to us through translation. Learn the alchemy. True, human beings know. The moment you accept what troubles you've been given, the door will open. Learn the alchemy. True human beings know. The moment you accept what troubles you've been given, the door will open. Welcome difficulties like a familiar comrade. Joke with torment brought by the friend. Sorrows are the rags of old clothes and jackets that serve to cover for a while and then are taken off. That undressing and the beautiful naked body underneath is the sweetness that comes after grief. The hurt you embrace becomes joy. Call it to your arms where it can change. Learn the alchemy true human beings know. The moment you accept what troubles you've been given, the door will open. Welcome difficulties like a familiar comrade. Sorrows are the rags of old clothes and jackets that serve to cover for a while and then are taken off. The hurt you embrace becomes joy. Call it to your arms where it can change. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself. You will greet yourself. You will greet yourself, arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all along, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life. And I want to close with a few words from Dina Metzger that are always a refrain for me. There are those who want to set fire to the world. We are in danger. There is time only to work slowly. There is no time not to love. Thank you. That music was by Jamie Sieber, my amazing cellist collaborator, from a CD that she and I created together called Only Breath. And the first poem was called Undressing by Rumi, translated by Coleman Barks. Second poem was Love After Love. I'm sure some of you could speak it along with me as I spoke it, by Derek Walcott. And the final poem was called Song by Dina Metzger. And thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you.
Thank you, Kim. That was sublime. That was just simply sublime. And Zaya and Maurizio, you've provided us today with a glimpse of non-duality through your words, through your being, through your love for one another, through your love for the world. And I just want to thank you and salute you and recommend Science and Non-Duality, everyone, as a domain that is worth exploring as we seek to fashion a better world. I hope that you'll all join our after session chat. The link will be put up momentarily. And then Monday, we're going to have another dialogue with Charles Eisenstein, who we've had a number of times on Humanity Rising, and is one of the great public intellectuals of our time, who wrote that brilliant essay on the coronation as the coronavirus was beginning to shut down the world, and that reverberated throughout the global mindset in very powerful ways. And he'll be here to comment on the unfolding of world events. But Zaya and Maurizio, this has been precious. This has been deeply precious today. And I just want to thank you and and honor you and salute everything that you are in our world.
Oh,
Thank you.
Made it a better place.
Likewise, it's been delightful conversation. I'm always dreading interviews just to and this has been delightful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And
And
thank you, Kim. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you
Beautiful.
for getting us right into the heart.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again on Monday, same time, same station, 5:00 p.m. Central European Time on Humanity Rising. This has been beautiful. My heart is so full. See you Monday. Bye-bye.